host, Rick Smalls.
Alongside your partner in crime.
My partner in crime, Tina Boucher.
That's right.
Today, we are looking into when pinball was banned in the U.S. back in the 1940s to the 1970s.
Ooh, the dark ages.
Yeah, imagine a world where playing pinball, just playing pinball, could land you in trouble with the law.
With the law, can you imagine?
It's hard to believe, but this beloved arcade game, I mean, who doesn't love pinball?
Right.
It was once seen as a threat.
A threat.
To society,
Yeah.
So much so that it was outlawed in a lot of American cities.
Well, it's kind of crazy to think about, right?
It is.
Like this thing that we consider so innocent today, like, flashing lights, silver ball,
Yeah.
pure entertainment, It was seen as something really dangerous back then.
Yeah, so how did pinball go from, like, innocent amusement to public enemy number one? Like, what were people so afraid of?
Well, I think to really get it, you got to look back at the time, right?
Yeah.
Think about the 1940s and 50s, post-war anxiety, conservative values. Everything felt a little, on edge.
All right.
And pinball, well, it had this connection to gambling.
Oh, right.
And, those kind of seedy arcades. So it became like a symbol of everything that seemed, wrong with society.
So it wasn't just the game itself, it was what it represented.
Exactly. Like pinball, it became this lightning rod for these worries about, what the kids were up to.
Juvenile delinquency?
Yeah, exactly. Idleness. Like, are they just wasting time?
Wasting time and money.
Exactly. And, there was this fear that it could lead to worse things,
So pinball's like a gateway. You've got to be kidding me.
I know, right? It sounds crazy now, but that's how a lot of people thought back then, especially like those in charge.
Right.
They saw it as this corrupting influence, especially on young people, a threat to, getting things done.
Art activity.
Yeah, and even like a breeding ground for criminal activity.
Wow.
So yeah, they really went after it.
So where did this pinball panic, begin? Was there a specific event or something that, sparked this crackdown?
It wasn't so much one single thing. It was more like this, growing tide of worry.
Right.
And it kind of, culminated in all these bans starting in the 40s.
Okay.
Big cities like New York, Chicago, L.A.
Yeah.
They led the charge, fueled by, I guess, a mix of moral outrage, but also a little bit of,
Political opportunism?
Yeah, political opportunism, exactly.
So you mean politicians, saw pinball as an easy target, like a way to score points?
Absolutely. It was a way to look tough on crime.
Yeah.
And, appeal to those conservative voters by cracking down on something, well, even if that threat was, mostly made up.
So how did this ban actually play out? Did they really go around smashing pinball machines?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Absolutely. There were these huge raids. I mean, it was all over the news.
Wow.
Police officers with sledgehammers smashing the machines, hauling them off to be dumped in rivers, landfills, you name it.
Oh, wow.
It was like, a big show of force
Right.
to make it clear that pinball was not welcome.
So pinball was, effectively wiped out.
Well, not completely. I mean, the bans mainly targeted the big cities.
Right.
And even then, there were, some people who resisted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there were these, underground pinball dens. Can you imagine?
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it definitely hurt the industry.
Yeah.
Manufacturers were struggling and, new games, they just weren't being made as much.
Yeah.
Everything just slowed down.
It's amazing how something as, seemingly harmless as pinball could cause such a strong reaction. How did it all end? Did pinball eventually redeem itself?
Oh, it did, but it took a while.
Okay.
And it took the effort of some really dedicated people who saw pinball not as this, menace,
Right.
but as, a game of skill, strategy,
Yeah.
a real legitimate form of entertainment, something that deserved respect,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about pinball's, road to redemption.
Well, it all started with one big change, a pivotal innovation that really transforms the game.
Okay, spill the beans. What was this game-changing innovation?
It was the flippers. They arrived in 1947.
Flippers?
Yeah.
Wait, you mean those little levers you used to control the ball?
Yeah, exactly. Before flippers, pinball is basically a game of chance.
Oh, right.
You just launch the ball and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But with flippers, players could actually, control where the ball went. They could bounce it around, aim for specific targets.
Right.
And you could get good at it.
So flippers turned pinball from a game of luck to a game of skill.
Exactly. And that changed how people saw it. That was crucial for pinball to make a comeback. Because now you could argue that pinball wasn't just gambling. It was a real sport.
Right. Yeah.
It took, dexterity, hand-eye coordination. You had to think strategically.
So did the authorities immediately embrace this new, vision of pinball.
Not quite. It took more than just, flippers to change their minds.
Right.
They needed, like, a champion, someone to really show them just how skill-based pinball could be.
A champion. Sounds like we're about to hear a pretty epic story.
You could say that enter Roger Sharpe, a journalist, a true pinball enthusiast.
Dude.
He would become pinball's unlikely savior. So in 1976,
Okay.
Sharpe, he found himself standing in front of the New York City Council,
Right.
determined to prove pinball wasn't just some, gambling device.
Right.
He had this plan, this
Right.
like daring plan to really show them the skill it took to play.
Okay, I'm hooked. What'd he do?
Sharpe brought a pinball machine
A pinball machine.
right into City Hall
Oh, wow.
and announced, like, I'm going to call my shots.
Oh.
I'm going to predict where this ball's going to land.
Oh, wait.
Using, my knowledge of the game, my skill with the flippers.
Talk about high stakes, like
Yeah.
pressure.
The fate of pinball resting on his shoulders.
Right there in that moment.
It was a make or break moment.
Yeah.
And with everyone watching
Yeah.
Sharpe,
Yeah.
he took his position and he delivered.
He did.
He called his shots, like, with total precision.
Wow.
And the ball, it just obeyed.
No way.
Landing exactly where he said it would.
So he basically performed pinball magic
Exactly.
right there in City Hall.
Right in front of them.
I bet the room just erupted in applause.
The council members, they were stunned.
Yeah.
They had to admit, like, there's undeniable skill here.
Right.
This isn't just random chance.
What a victory for pinball and for Roger Sharpe.
It was a turning point.
Yeah.
Sharpe's demonstration, along with, years of people fighting for pinball,
Right.
enthusiasts, industry leaders, it finally convinced the New York City Council to lift the ban.
What about other cities? Did they follow suit?
Yeah, New York's decision, it was like a ripple effect
Mm.
across the country.
Wow.
Other cities, they saw pinball making a comeback. They started to see it as a legitimate game of skill, and, they reconsidered their own bans.
So pinball was finally free
Free at last.
after decades of being, demonized.
Yeah, it was a hard-won victory.
Right.
And even though pinball would face new challenges later on, like, think about video games in the 80s.
Right, yeah.
It had proven, like, how resilient it was.
Yeah.
It earned its spot in the hearts of millions.
Incredible journey from being banned to being celebrated.
I know.
Pinball's story, it's a testament to, like, the power of games.
Totally.
And the importance of, fighting for what you believe in.
Exactly. It shows how things can change.
Yeah.
What was once a threat
Right.
becomes this beloved pastime.
So we've learned about pinball's, like, scandalous past, but what about its future? Where does pinball stand today?
Well, you might be surprised to hear that pinball's actually having a bit of a revival.
Really?
Yeah, there's this growing community of people who love it.
That's great.
And new manufacturers are creating these really cool, innovative machines, like pushing the boundaries of design and gameplay.
Fantastic. So pinball's not just a relic of the past.
No, not at all.
It's still alive and kicking.
It's like a living, breathing art form.
I'm curious, what do you think it is about pinball that keeps people coming back?
I think it's that combo of, like, using your body, the physicality of it,
Right.
and strategy. You're not just hitting buttons.
Right, yeah.
You're using your whole body to control the ball.
Yeah.
And there's just something so satisfying about making a difficult shot
Right.
or beating your high score.
Yeah, it's like a dance
Yeah.
between you and the machine.
Exactly.
And those sounds, the lights,
Yeah.
the feel of the flippers.
It's a sensory experience
Yeah.
that you just don't get with a video game.
Well, you've definitely inspired me to dust off my pinball skills
Yeah.
and check out some of these new machines. What a fascinating look into pinball's history. And, a reminder that even the most unlikely heroes
Right.
can make a difference.
It's a story that resonates, I think, with anyone who's ever been told they can't do something
Yeah.
or that what they're passionate about is, silly or even dangerous.
Yeah.
Pinball's comeback, it's all about perseverance,
Right.
innovation, and the pure joy of playing.
It's crazy to think, right? Like pinball was this scandalous thing.
I know, right? Like, so subversive.
Yeah, it shows how much things change,
Oh, totally. Our culture, what's taboo, it's constantly shifting.
It makes you wonder, like, what's going to be the next pinball,
That's a good question.
What's that thing that we think is harmless now
Yeah.
that's going to be banned in the future?
It's hard to say, right? I mean, if history tells us anything, it's that, like, these moral panics, they
Yeah.
pop up around the most unexpected things.
What do you think, like, what's our generation's pinball?
Ooh, that's tough.
I don't know, like, maybe some types of online gaming? Or like
Nah.
those virtual reality things?
Yeah, it could be those things that blur the lines between, like, what's real and what's not.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, whenever we have new tech, there's always this, like, period of adjustment. People get anxious
Yeah.
figuring out what it all means.
And then they just, like, project those anxieties onto the tech itself.
Right, exactly. Like, it's easier to blame the game, the device, than to actually deal with the, like, bigger social problems.
Well, hopefully we learned from, Pinball's story.
Fingers crossed.
And we can approach new things with a little more, nuance.
Yeah, open-mindedness.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the key is, like, critical thinking, healthy skepticism, but without, like, freaking out and banning everything.
Yeah, good point.
Balance, right.
Balance, yeah.
So, to all our listeners out there, we
Yeah.
want to know, what do you think is going to be the next pinball? What's that harmless thing today that could be banned tomorrow? Let us know in the comments.
Great question. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Remember, like and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode.
See you next time.